Good afternoon, everyone. We're here once again for our study group on the book Alert by the Spirit Joanna de Angelis. Let me find it here. Okay, here. A psychography by Divaldo Franco. And today we are on lesson 45. And Joanna de Angelis is going to talk to us about a festival of blessings. And as we can see, what she calls blessings not necessarily is what we consider to be blessings. We always have to keep in mind that from the perspective of a spirit life, they will have a better understanding of what the occurrences we go through in our lives represents for us when talking about the um, when talking about this vision that we may have when looking at those things. So he or she will be giving us an idea of this kind of festival of blessings that we have that we do not pay attention to, that we do not consider. Sometimes, when we look back and we look at the facts of the things that happened to us, we may say, well, that was not, I would say, a pleasing experience, but it was so enlightening and it has helped me so much in terms of what I am today. So let's start with what she is going to tell us. So she starts by saying, do not disdain the unperceivable values of Christian service in your process of spiritual renovation. Do not disregard the contribution of suffering and the program of your inner growth. Do not underestimate the testimonies of renunciation and humility in the effort towards personal liberation. Do not disdain the moral traps and the carnal recess during spiritist apprenticeship. So let's go one by one here. I mean, the whole message is for us not uh, to not give the proper value to things that happen to us. So she starts by saying that all the work that we do for goodness, even if they are difficult, even if they are not appreciated, they are very important for our spiritual renovation. So number one, good service means uh, assistance for us in spiritual renovation. Number two would be suffering. Everything that we do not consider pleasing in our lives, they may be the only path for us to inner growth. And remember, everything, all the goal here is for us to achieve inner growth. And it doesn't necessarily come with nice experiences, not because we cannot grow from nice experiences, but because we have chosen to take a different path. I was listening to a friend of mine that was giving a talk yesterday, and he gave a very interesting example about our lives and the position of spiritual help in relation to our lives. Spiritual help coming from, our guardian angels, spirit benefactors, whoever. So he compared that to, us having a GPS in our car. Okay, that little device that will tell us the best way to reach, in our case, what we want is happiness, right? So the final destination is happiness. And now we have, a route established for us to get there. But what happens normally? We miss an exit out of our own volition. We may say, no, I know better than the GPS, right? Or just I was distracted with something else and I missed my turn. So what the GPS will do? It will immediately reprogram my route, still for me to reach happiness, but now it will take longer. Maybe the path, the highway that I'm going to take now is not as smooth as it was the other one, not as pleasant, the landscape, all of that. So here, what we are trying to say with this number two, the suffering, is not that we cannot go in a straight line with a pleasant route, okay, experiencing everything that the road is going to give to us. But then our free will and lack of attention and disregard takes us from the best route. But in any case, we will always get there. So here, when we talk about suffering, it is our choices. It is, our wrong turns that led us to experience inner growth through a more difficult path that it should have been. And also, everything that represents renunciation, humility, also helps us in terms of personal liberation. So many people, and we see that quite often, and we see that in examples of history. Let's talk about, Abraham Lincoln. He was not loved at his time. He was not appreciated at his time. Let's talk about composers, or here in the city now we have an exhibition of the paintings of the Van Gogh. He sold one painting in his entire life. He died completely broke and unappreciated. So when we are talking in terms of pursuing a spiritual path, not necessarily people will understand us and appreciate us. And as we see, in terms of the traps that they can make to us, and how they can not necessarily value all the work that we do. So those are only a few examples that Joanna de Angelis call the Festival of Blessings. I mean, in our vocabulary, we wouldn't call that blessings. But in the vocabulary of an enlightened spirit, she tells us, I guarantee to you that this is going to lead you to happiness, to a better situation than now. Anyone would like to say something at this point, or comment, or ask question?
I do, Sarah.
Yeah.
Um, this is so intriguing what she's trying to tell us, but it's all that we've been learning through Spiritism, that when we go through our trials and tribulations is not what we think it is. That what we receive is exactly what we need. And through this is where we see this light of improving ourselves. So the festival is not what we think, like you explained this so clearly, is not the festival. Is festival of what we have to go through, suffering, pain and suffering, okay. But she explains it so clearly. And to understand that it's actually suffering is good for us, because until we go through our trials, and that's the only way we learn, because that's where we're at right now. We are who we are in this world of trials and tribulations. So we can't look at it as we people usually look at, oh my God, we're suffering, it's terrible, oh my God. But now we look at it with a different eye and say, wait a minute, it is what we need. And we have to understand, not going to this trap of not understanding the difference of spiritual renovation and suffering, that it is good for us. But gee, it's so hard. You explain this to any people, I look at you like if you're crazy. What are you talking about? Suffering is good. But naturally, you could only explain it to people that understand this.
Yeah.
But she is so beautiful how she explains things and make you see, you know, don't think the way we usually think. Go through this way of understanding that this is good for us.
Mhm.
Okay.
And you
Yeah,
see, yes, Philip, go ahead.
on this subject, we call it suffering because it's something we initially don't want. But if we compare it with preparation for going into the armed forces, we go through a period of training, which is essentially hard work and deprivation. But what does that represent? That represents preparation for the activity that you may have to go through later on, which will save your life because you've gone through it before and built yourself to a point where you can endure it with saying, well, I've done this before. Now, that doesn't cover everything, but it raises your level of endurance and your ability to look at things in a different light to some degree.
That's an excellent example. And what the next step would be? Me thinking, oh my God, I had to go to all this hard period of preparation to go to war, right? How can I avoid all of that in the first place?
Mhm.
And so it is to understand that it is within our reach on a personal level to prevent us to have to go through this training period and to go to war. So now we are still suffering the consequences of everything that we have been sowing along the way. But that's now, even if we look at this and I say, I don't embrace suffering.
Mhm.
Okay, there are some people that says, oh, you guys spiritists, you love suffering. Oh, God forbid. Like, go away, demon. No, absolutely not. We do not want that. We do not praise suffering, but we understand, like with this excellent example that why we are going through that, and representing the consequence of our actions and lessons that have to be internalized, because it's still in our level of involvement. If it is not through this pain experience, chances are we are still going to be abusing and not learning the lessons, especially when we have just one occurrence of them. So, but here the big thing here is that I don't want that for my future. And even my present, I'm in control. You know, I will still live in my past present what was in the past, but I will still live in my present what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
putting that into and understanding that, putting that into my mind and understanding that gives me a new direction and say, I don't want to go through this anymore. I want to go in a straight route. I don't want to be taking, secondary roads, more difficult roads, complicating my life. And it is in my hands to do that. Let's continue seeing what she says. Do not disdain the contribution of study and meditation before the obligations regarding your own evolution. So, like Jesus said, the spirit of truth, the first is love, the second is studying, learning. Because it's only when we start reasoning like we are doing now is that I'm going to be able to equate that my life is the result of everything that I'm doing. Do not excuse yourself from the work, as insignificant or expressive as it may be. It represents a challenge to your convenience in facing of your escalating progress. So many times, it's easier for us to be accommodate, right? Not just to stay the way we are, to be content with the situation we have, but they not necessarily represent the best choice for us. I was thinking about that Egyptian fable that we have in one of the books by Andre Lewis that the Spirit Emmanuel dictated to Chico Xavier. I believe it is in a Missionaries of the Light, is the fable of the red fish,
Oh,
the little fish,
the little fish, the little red
right?
fish. Yeah.
That there's,
Yes.
they live it in a pond. They and life was good. They had enough food. Uh, and they were quite content with what they had until one day this little fish that was kind of adventurous, curious, he saw a tiny hole and he decided to see what this tiny hole was going to bring to him. And then when he took this path, he found himself in the ocean. And my God, it was a whole new gigantic world compared to the little pond he had. And from that perspective, he could see that the little pond was really small and even in danger of being extinct because of dry weather and all of this. So he adventured in the ocean, meet new species and all you can imagine. And then he says, you know what, I have to go back and tell my friends there that they are at the risk of perishing. And he squeezes himself back in that tiny hole and goes to, you know to the chief of the fish over there and gather all the other fish, and he started explaining what happened. And he said, listen, if you stay how you are here, you are running the risk of dying, because pretty soon this pond is no longer exists. This I learned from my friends in the ocean. So follow me and let's go, where there is life in abundance. Okay, plenty of food and places and etc. There was only a catch, which was some of them, because of their, uh, couch potato life, They were kind of, a little chubby to fit into that tiny hole. So he proposed that they would go through a regimen, a diet in order to do that. And immediately they dismissed everything. It's an illusion what you're saying. This does not exist. You're not going to do that. And they didn't. And they probably died. The pond dried. And the little fish did what he had to do, like the spirits do with us, come to us and say, listen, there is life in abundance beyond this, tiny corner that you think life exists. Is what she's saying here sometimes, because of we are so accommodated to to the life as we know it, to staying in this comfort zone that we call comfort zone, that we do not long for more. We do not do the effort. And here the effort means, working to grow and to learn, intellectually speaking, but also morally speaking. And then she says, that's why do not withdraw yourself from the condition of apprentice. Because you are in a process of spiritual education. There is so much for us to learn yet. Okay. Any comments or questions so far? Let's see if there is a comment. Then I go to Orlando's question. Hi, Orlando.
Hello.
So, uh, how does the spirit world measures evolution compared to our mentality of time? That's a very good question, Orlando. I don't know. um, Certainly, there has to be a way. We understand that time, it's from the spirit perspective, is absolutely different than the one we have it here. Even here, we know that if I take uh, a spaceship and go to another planet, time is going to be different, weight is going to be different, everything is going to be different. But the evolution we can see by the density of our physical body and spiritual body. The less evolved we are, the denser our physical and spiritual body will be. So to them, they can easily recognize the levels of evolvement of a spirit in relation to their to how, let's call it, for lack of a better word, how ethereal they are. Okay.
Usara,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
this is why I'm constantly on Facebook. I'm saying don't get confused by the word evolution. It's right now, at this moment, you need to know about the spirit world and life after death. You have to read the Allan Kardec. Prepare yourself now. Don't let this word evolution, it's timeless, So
Yes.
I'm promoting that.
Yes, that's the way it is. I mean, here it's more like personal growth, and personal growth, very much like us as adults. Uh, we will be much more careful with our choices, right? We already know the consequences of certain actions and how damaging they can be to us. If I don't sleep tonight, how am I going to feel actually, if I don't sleep one night, I feel lousy the next day already, but 2 nights in a row. So I'm not going to go crazy and just stay awake doing whatever. No. So as adults, we know already how to choose um, things that may bring us good results. maybe not all the time, maybe we don't know everything, but we're already doing those choices, right? And this is the same thing in terms of spirit life. uh, the the more we evolve, the more we will be able to go through that. So let's continue. Committed to life, you're an intern in the terrestrial school under necessary disciplines for growth and attainment of peace. Again, she's saying we are in internship here. Uh, and everything, all the experiences we go through is with this aim of making us grow and reach happiness and peace. Tied to the past by unfortunate bonds, you experience the constrictions that you are dependent upon, despite earning for freedom. Act while it is still today, help beyond your limit, grow through the detachment from yourself, and assist those who retain you in the maze of afflictions. So she's trying to explain here that one of the reasons why we go through these difficult things in our lives and challenges, né? Right, is actually the bonds that we have with our past, not only with people, with relationships we had, but with the actions that we have committed. So it's only natural that we still feel the pressure of all of this. But then again, it's up to us to understand that this is in the past, that I'm going to go through this phase. I don't need to go through that again. And I still have the power to control all of that. And when we are talking about people that may have been trying to put us down, uh, instead of having a response of indifference towards them, we should help them in their path as well, in their afflictions. Okay, any comments or questions?
One thing about that I think is so interesting is, we're told, and correctly so, to focus on learning and working hard, but that last statement, which I know is a classic Joanna, but it's so good and so true, is grow through detachment from yourself. So you can't stay inside yourself all the time. That's where you can't be vigilant and looking out to see how others are doing and trying to help and serve others. So you got to sometimes not just work inside yourself, but also work outside of yourself, to try and help others. You've got to be aware that others are out there. I know I go running sometimes and I lose myself in my own philosophy, my own thought. And it's like, wake up, there's people out here. You may run past somebody who needs your help. So it's a combination of both in my mind.
And you see that's so wonderful, this comment, Paul, because you see, classic Joanna is in a evolved spirit. The thing that she's also implying here is that when we are not just thinking about ourselves and we are acting in benefit of others, this is going to bring us the result of bettering ourselves, because we cannot do that really, or as it should be, if we are not already growing and understanding. So yes, it's one good, I think for myself, it's a very good alternative when it's very hard just to work with my inner beasts, so to say. Okay, let me make what I'm capable of. And so I will be dedicating myself to the service for others, preparing these classes, doing things that will fulfill me, will help me to get stronger, so to say, to then, um, when possible, deal with my imperfections, and little by little eliminate them from me, from my life. But it's a way that we see many of the evolved spirits advising us, for us to remove ourselves from the thought of just thinking about ourselves, and actually dedicating to the general good. Let's go to the next one. You do not walk without the companionship of those who are synchronized or attuned to you due to past reasons, as well as the objectives that fascinate your mind and your sentiments. What she's trying to say here, that today we have next to us, and we are the result of our uh, tendencies, inclinations, interests from the past, and people from the past as well. So, especially people that are close to us, they are not there by chance. Either we have a very close connection with them from previous lives, or if we don't, still they were placed in our inner circle because we could learn from them, help them, or both things at the same time. A mutual help, a mutual assistance to grow. So this is another thing that we have to think about. That's why sometimes when we say, like Paul just mentioned, when I think about just me as something apart from the rest, it doesn't work. It's like we always say, it's like we are those little pieces of a puzzle. I may seem like an individual. I have my own shape, my own color, my own qualities and usage. But alone, I don't make anything. I'm just one piece that is going to be missing in the whole set, and that the whole set cannot be completed unless I'm there. And if I'm there alone and I don't have the rest, it's the same thing. That's why, the connection with people and the work that we will do, each one in a small circle that connects with another small circle that connects with the other, and then it's everyone connected, right? Let me see what let's remember, we have to deal with the aspects of bad besides of our daily problems. How can we free our minds the way she suggests? Again, Orlando, that's why she used the word synchronized. Okay, we will be attuned with things that are connected to us due to our own wavelength. So the only way for me to disconnect from a certain wavelength is to change mine. So while I'm still resonating from my thoughts, from my actions, from my past, in a low level, let's call it that, a low level wavelength, the ones that are going to interact with me are the ones that are, more or less in the same area that I'm here surfing. Okay. The more I raise myself, I started going to different circles, to different wavelengths. And even when they seem that they can be in the same place, there is always this example that you can put vinegar and oil in the same container and they will not mix, right? So here on planet Earth, we have a lot of people that are vinegar and a lot of people that are oil. And we are not going to say which one is the bad one. Okay, you can have your choice. The thing is, we can still be together and not necessarily being impregnated by the chemicals, meaning the emotions that the other have. I may even, like when we shake the container, for a moment, we may even, kind of be lost, lose our identity, but immediately we return. We have the power to return. But this is due to us, to our efforts. The Spirit has nothing to do with that. So whether I'm going to be choosing to commune with higher levels of wavelength or low level of wavelengths, it depends entirely on me. So that's why she says here, elevate the standards of your aspirations. I mean, we aspire for a new car, a bigger house. She says, no, don't aspire to that. Aspire to, getting rid of impatience, of the negative emotions you still harbor in your hearts, the grudge you still hold. Those are things that the spirits are going to be there all the time to help us to conquer them. I mean, if you want to be sure that your prayers are going to be answered, ask ask for this kind of things. Of course, it is not going to be by a touch of a miracle. Okay, it's going to go into a crescendo, but they will be there helping us to overcome our own imperfections. So she says, elevate the standards of your aspirations and work the ground of your desires, sowing the light of love so it can respond with peace when you face sacrifice and struggle. Because when we get into a state of inner peace, even when we still have to deal with challenges, like for instance now in the pandemic, okay, we all are going through the same things. The fear, I mean, not anymore. Fortunately, we are hopefully overcoming it, right? Putting this behind, we don't know it yet, but it seems so. But let's think about when we were there, our mental state acceptance depended on each one of us. If we would think about different aspirations, different desires, we would definitely be more capable of adapting and having patience and learning from the lessons we learned, from everything that we had to deal with or still are dealing in relation to this planetary situation. Any comments or questions? Yes, Sonia.
This time of my life, particular myself, then I can know some people around me. It's difficult people around me. Problem is having the best reason to be together in this time. And in the past, I used to cry and to like this, to with me, but not anymore. Then I use all these lessons and try to apply to myself. Then disconnect my mind and sentiments from that person is so different.
Mhm.
It's not exactly disconnect with this person, but try to use all these, and now would like to give that person opportunity to be a better person.
Mhm.
Exactly as you giving us every Tuesday with these lessons and all books, everything we are learning, and then to share. And I know in, in another line, she mentioned about put yourself out and help the others.
Mhm.
Maybe not always easy with this person around us, close to us.
Yeah.
And, and then we need some strategic, then we give examples, we can give love and prayers, and not not cry anymore every time they try to hurt us. And it's a small changing we creating in our life. We
Mhm.
did not synchronize them anymore, not contaminate our mind and our feelings, but connect differently, continue disconnected, because we need this link to send them better things,
Mhm.
light and prayers and all examples we can do. Because I try before to be far from these people and not work around. And then now I'm trying different ways and use all this knowledge we are learning and try to apply in our daily life.
Actually, Sonia, you just summarize it, what we normally talk about in terms of spiritism. Many people come to, to spirituality in general, be it spiritism or something else, okay, to bring more spirituality into their lives, to understand life from a spiritual perspective. But sometimes, they come thinking that by doing that, they are going to remove the stones of their path. And we just say, we say from what the spirits tell us. They say we cannot remove the stones you have yourself determined to have, in your path, but we can help you overcome them. So is everything a matter of a perspective? Okay, so you were talking about relationships, that it's the case with all of us. We all for sure have one or two or more people in our inner circle that may be very difficult to deal with, and that, in the past we were struggling, trying to, to beat them, to do whatever we could, or, being in confrontation and then ignoring, like you said, none of those formulas help it. And now we see that it's very much related to our uh, inner state. And Divaldo was giving a talk, Divaldo Franco was giving a talk this Sunday, that he used the example of a woman that she got married, and because her husband was preparing to go to war, and that was way back, but it's still war. And they had to go and live in a very arid area in the, I don't know if it was Arizona, something like a place like that, so that he could get usage, like Philip was saying, prepared, used to the different temperatures, very very high and then very humid at night and cold at night and etc. And so they decided to get married before going. And she knew exactly what was going to happen, but not exactly. Because when he got there and he had 2 or 3 days for his honeymoon, but after that he had to start training. Every time he returned home, he was completely tired. He would just kiss her goodnight, and that was it. He was exhausted. And with time passing, she became very unpleased with all things. And she wrote to her mother for her mother to give her advice. And so her mother wrote her back the following: You have a window, and some people look at the window with their eyes more of facing the soil, and they will see the mud, they will see, you know, what is there. Other people look up and see the sky, the blue sky, and the stars. And she signed, Love, Mom. So it took a while for the daughter to understand that this is what we are happening here. What is outside our window is the same. So the person, let's say, that is there, but am I going to look down and see just the mud and everything else, or am I going to look up and see from a different perspective? And I think what Spiritism provides us, or this spiritual value provides us, is exactly that. The the landscape is still the same, but I change my focus. I choose a different perspective. And then, okay, I'm not going to focus any longer just in the bad things that are, down to the soil. I'm just look at the whole, at least at the whole picture. And so this is what we have to do in relation to, what you were talking about, and how this, all of this really helps us in our lives, in our relationships, because things maybe from the other side may still be the same, but we are different now. We see things differently. Let's look at the last one. So she says, guard the springs of sentiments and do not exhaust learning, to go through learning, teaching and living the lesson of optimism that percolate from the word of the Lord. One day you will bless all this effort, and by practicing it from now on, you will understand that true happiness is born as a gentle stellar light that reaches plenitude and absorbs all shadows of sadness in a festival of blessings for the spirit. Beautiful, right? So she says, watch out, for your sentiments, and keep on learning, teaching, being optimistic, understanding and bringing to your life, all the lessons we can gather from the natural laws, from the teachings that Jesus brought to us, that is related to the natural laws. And one day we will understand all that. Like we said at the beginning, there are things now in our lives that we can say, it was a very difficult time in my life, but it made me grow so much. It made me look life from a different perspective. It made me appreciate life more, relationships more, the true sentiments more. And this is how we will see that even from negative things, like sometimes we use this blessings in disguise, They are blessings in disguise. We don't understand them, but they are blessings in disguise. Um, does the word free will limit the spirits to help us in our daily lives? Not necessarily, Orlando, but they know, and that, even with their approximation, being next to us, trying to protect us, trying to whisper to our spirits the good advices, at the end of the day, we are going to be the ones choosing it. uh, the only thing here is that many times, because of our own behaviors and wavelengths, we make it very hard from more evolved spirits to reach us, for us to be able to, to have a connection. Right, the Wi-Fi connection is not that good sometimes because of us. And so that's why, uh, sometimes they are not as present, meaning we don't feel their presence that much. We don't feel that, hear their advices that much, because we are being oblivious to them, making it hindering their path towards us. But it's our way. It's our choice.
And it's a small story, true story. Last week at night, I was praying and then I started to see like lights, but I didn't pay attention. And then it started raining and a storm, really strong storm
Mhm.
during the night. I was so tired and then I slept. When the next day I woke up, then I look at the garden, all flowers, blossom, and
Mhm.
was a nice garden with flowers
Oh.
everywhere. And then if you can applying this lesson in our daily life, many times it's a storm, but in the end we can have like a nice garden with a blessing in our life.
Exactly, Sonia. Exactly. That's exactly what we have to think about, and I mean, and understand that there is a purpose for all the things that happen to us. You know, even when we are talking about the difficulties, um, the that we have to face, they are serving a purpose, and this purpose is never punishing, because that would be the first thing that we would think about when we are talking about, um, them, the suffering being the consequences of what we did. First thing we think is an eye for an eye, right? But it's not. This is not the purpose. It's not because I did something that I have to pay for that. No, I have to go through the struggle, not to learn and not to do that again. I have to face the consequences. When you are aggressive, to unpleasant to a person, the right thing to do, it would be to go to this person and, ask forgiveness, right? It's not something that is that easy for us to do, right? But it still is the right thing to do. And it's one thing, and when I remember that, I don't think it is nice when I have to go and, kind of, humble myself and ask for forgiveness and this and that, and having to admit that I was wrong. So what would be the best course of actions for me in the future? Not to do that anymore, because I don't want it to go to have to do that anymore, right? So this is how we learn. Unfortunately, this is how we learn. Um, it could be different, like they say, you know, the wise person learn from others' mistake, from other experiences. But we still are like, oh no, this is never going to happen to me, so I can do that. Yeah, but it does. And then we go through the consequences of it. Okay, so that's it for today. Any final comment or someone would like to say, or should we go already for our final prayer? Okay, we don't have, maybe Zoraida can do a final prayer for us, please.